so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you everybody for coming here. Now, so today's session is going to be an interesting session where it's going to be highly interactive. So what that means is I would need you guys to engage me and interact with me, because this is actually about you guys, right? So this workshop is not so much about me. My focus here is really to give you guys some very practical tip, and this is one of the, in fact, the content that we're going to talk today is something that I've been doing in my communications program. So when I do communications program, the focus has always been in terms of how do we communicate in a way that it's easy for people to understand, as well as easy for us to work with the person. So that's generally how when I run my communication session. Now, let me kind of just bring it up for today. And how many of y'all have watched this serial or this? Are y'all familiar with this show? Yes, all right. No, not me, Jay. You should watch. Okay, so now we've been following. In fact, we are now waiting for season 5, right? So what's interesting about this and connects to our workshop today? We're talking about engaging others for success with cognitive flexibility. It's really about, it's about the ability to work with others. You may be a super skilled in your trade, but yet it is the softer, the soft touches, the way we work with people that makes difference. And this particular show, it's interesting because it talks about a doctor who has condition, and therefore he's very smart, but he has challenges in terms of connecting with people. And actually what I like about this particular show, right, was the way he connects with people. And when we talk about cognitive flexibility, I honestly feel that he demonstrated that in the movie. He demonstrated that a lot in the way that he does things for others, even if it doesn't matter to him, right? And one of the interesting episode I saw is the fact that he was battling with this whole idea of lying. Do you lie or do you not lie? And when we talk about cognitive flexibility, that has a lot to do with cognitive flexibility. So I'm going to talk to you all today. No, my intention is not to get you to lie. My intention is to get you to explore this whole area of cognitive flexibility, as well as get to understand what are some of the things we can do to do it more. Now, the focus is not so much cognitive flexibility. The focus is engaging others for success. And that is ultimately what we want to do with this particular session, right? This quote by Albert Einstein, I'm not sure you have seen it. It said, "The world as we have created is a process of our thinking," right? It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Now, so what does that mean? It comes back to the fundamental that everything begins with a thought, right? If you are from have a religious background, then you realize, it's about the way God sees the world and how He creates it. So it really talks about what's in our mind. If we think we can, we can. If we think we cannot, we cannot, if you have heard of that. And I thought this is a good anchor quote as we begin today, that the way we interact with others also have to do with how we view others, right? For example, if I like you, I'm willing to make compromises. If I don't like you, I'll just stand my ground. Do you agree with that statement or not? Yes or no? If I like you, I'm willing to make compromises. If I don't like you, I will just stand my ground. Do you agree with that statement or not? Indicate yes or no, right? I need to state this, that I'm Malaysian, because I have been getting a lot of feedback that you sound very Singaporean. And the reason is because I started my career in Singapore in the year 2000, right? And I've been in very different industries. And over the last 10 years, I've been working with organizations. I've been working with leaders and executives, professionals in the area of how do you improve work. And two key areas that I work is, firstly, leadership. How do you lead? And secondly, soft skills. And I can tell you, anyone from the CEO down to the operator will always tell you, one of the key skills is really about communication. And when we talk about communication, it's not so much about talking, but specifically about how do I work with others. While in Singapore, I actually have opportunities to work with hospitals. Once again, I mention hospitals because, or healthcare, for two reasons. Firstly, my parents' background are in the healthcare. My dad was a doctor. My mom was running a nursing school. And also in Singapore, I had the opportunity to work with SingHealth as well as Jurong Health, where we talk a lot about the patient experience. So that was my background and my understanding and things that have shaped me in the way I work with people, right? Now, so that's a bit about me, and then I thought it'd be good just now. Some I'll share where you're watching from. Now, if you can help me indicate in the chat box, right? Which state, where are you from? So just now you have indicated that. What are you studying? In what field are you studying? And that's going to help me understand whether it's more of a tech, non-tech, medical, because you guys are IMU, but obviously there are different courses. So what do you study? And third point, will you be getting a job? Are you planning to do further studies? Can you indicate this in the chat box so I'm able to tailor my presentation this afternoon to address what works for you, right? So I really want to be able to give you guys very practical tips in the area of cognitive flexibility, as well as engaging others for success. So if you can indicate in the chat box, where you're from, what did you study, right? So you can just put comma and then complete. Don't press enter. If you press enter, you'll go to the next slide. And then, will you be getting a job? That means, are you planning to work after this, or are you planning to continue studies, right? We're going to talk about cognitive flexibility, what is it? But more important, the benefits, right? Because one of the things that I constantly promote, whatever you learn, there needs to be a clear benefit. Some of you may disagree, but I used to learn because I say I enjoy learning. What has happened for me over the last maybe 20 years is I've come to the notion when you learn, there needs to be a purpose. It has to be a clear, not just a purpose, but clear purpose. Gaining knowledge for the sake of gaining knowledge, it's not going to work, because you know how our brain works. For you guys, when you do neuroscience, right? If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So use it for a purpose. So I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of it. Then ultimately, and this is from my own work experience as well as when I train, I work with leaders, is the ability to work with all kinds of people. Let me stress that. All kinds of people, right? So it's not just people who are like you, people that is very different from you, contributes significantly to our life success. In fact, I'll make a prediction. If you get married, your spouse is probably going to be somebody who's very different from you, right? And the ability to work is important, right? So this is where we talk about cognitive flexibility. You guys should be seeing this, and you guys will have a box. So as you type, now it's anonymous. So as you type your responses, it will appear here and it's going to help me understand. And the question is, what challenges do you face or fear when working with others? Now, if you're in school, probably you talk about project work. Even right now, they're working people, or what you fear, meaning what are you anticipating when you go to the workplace, right? So what I would like to do with this particular section is to hear from you. And okay, great. Thanks everyone. As Asma was Mia. So can you key in your answers? And I want to be able to address that, because I think this is what is going to be helpful for you as you guys get ready for the job market. Yeah. All right. So you're there. Can you indicate your answers? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go through this, and this is going to be more like a Q&A thing. I'm just going to respond, and if the answer is good, guys, give me a thumbs up so I know the answer is good. If you don't agree, it's then let me know, or either thumbs down or let me know, right? Okay, so some of you says the fear of cutting other people off. So let's look at this. The fear of cutting other people off while they speak. I mainly lack confidence while presenting. So great. Now, for the person who's sharing this, I think what's good is you actually are able to acknowledge that you lack confidence, right? And while presenting. Now, one of the things that was helpful for me, and believe it or not, I am someone who struggles with confidence my whole life. So much so that when I was young, one of the biggest jokes people make about me is I don't speak to the opposite sex, right? Now, what you want to do is two things. Firstly, is to recognize that confidence to a large degree, can be faked, which means you are able to project confidence, and it's like the duck paddling on water. People don't need to see. Now, obviously, part of this requires a lot of practice, right? So this is part of it, but obviously there's a mindset perspective. So thanks for sharing this. The fear of cutting out people while they speak. Now, what I would like you to do is, as we go through today's session, at the end of the session, ask yourself whether what you have taken from today address this issue. fear of cutting out people, there are two reasons. Firstly is upbringing. In our culture, cutting people off is perceived as disrespectful. Cutting people off is perceived as not a good thing. Now, in a very Western society, cutting people off is fine because, in fact, it actually shows you're passionate about what you're doing, which is why you're cutting, right? That cutting and disagreeing is two different things. So you're just cutting like somebody's going, oh, yes, 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 right? Now, what's interesting is a simple technique you can use when you want to, instead of cutting, is you want to be able, as simple as just raising your hands and, putting up there until somebody say yes. What do you want? Right? So that is one way that you can overcome this fear of cutting other people while they speak. So if they're speaking, you just put out your hands. Eventually, somebody will have to call you out, right? Because if not, it's going to be like sore thumb. So do that as one method to be able to share your point without the fear of cutting others, right? Hopefully that helps. Okay. Let's do ones that have not agree with each other. So that's the fear. Now, I will guarantee you this will happen. And then you need to ask the question is, by keeping quiet, will work get better? For some of us, this could be because you have your natural style is to be agreeable to people, because for you, harmony is important. Now, for example, if you do, the challenge with that is, in today's context, sometimes creating a harmonious situation may not be the most ideal thing. So what you want, I think one of the biggest, so the way to overcome this fear is about languaging, right? How do you speak in a way that people are open to it? One of the simplest way to go around this is, instead of saying, I don't agree, I find that use the statement is, can I share a different perspective? Or can I share a different view? Just use that, can I share a different perspective? When you do that, at the cognitive level, the person who's listening to you did not hear the word disagree, right? What the person here is, you have a different opinion, and they become less defensive. So that might be something helpful for you to just say, I have a different perspective, can I share? Now, in most situations, everybody will say, please go ahead and share. Now, that's one technique that you can use to overcome this fear or challenges. I hope that works. All right. That's about disagreeing. Now, sounding stupid. Sounding stupid, it's challenging. One phrase that helps me, and I'm not sure how true it is, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong and tell me whether I got it right. Many years ago, I don't know when I was young, someone shared to me, and it seems it's a Chinese idiom that says, a Chinese proverb that says, if you ask a question, you'll look stupid for 5 minutes. If you don't ask a question, you'll stay stupid forever. And that kind of shocked me out in terms of like, okay, it's better to be stupid for a short period than forever being stupid. And I can tell you, in the working world, there are a lot of people who keep quiet, who act as if they know, and they'll get in trouble later on. So my suggestion is, part of it is to actually tell yourself, part of cognitive flexibility is actually telling yourself, it's okay to be stupid, because stupid can be overcome, right? Think about it, stupid can be overcome, right? But if you don't say anything, it's going to harm you a lot later. So that was something that I hope helps you with this thing about being stupid. And obviously, I do know where you're coming from, because I had a similar situation. For example, for me, I was an engineer. And as an engineer, I take pride in what I do. I take pride in knowing my facts. And yet some questions, sometimes they're not asked, because my fear is, if I ask people who question me, are you really an engineer? So that was back then. But today I've come to a point, if a person asks me, are you sure you are a leadership consultant? I will just say that, well, that the field is so big, certain things I know, certain things I don't know. If I don't know, I ask. And that's something that you want to be able to tell yourself and tell others, right? So that's something that hopefully it helps you a bit more. Convincing others. Now, cognitive flexibility is critical in convincing others, because convincing others is about putting it in a way that they like. So let me share with you an incident that that I was able to influence my dad many years ago. So I was in my final year. So I studied in UTM. I was in my final year and I was doing dissertation. And this was in 1996, where internet is nowhere it is today. And I remember my dad is a military guy, and for him, you only get something if there is a need to. And I was fascinated with internet, and back then it was a modem, the one that your parents will probably tell you, you press you got that sound. So I wanted to get the internet, and he says, "What do you want it for?" And the answer of surfing the net wasn't a good answer. Oh yeah, by the way, my dad is a doctor, and therefore for him, it has to be pure fact or something that really helps you. So what I did was I told him that I was doing my thesis, my dissertation, and I needed to be able to do referencing and do research. So the keyword was doing research, and that was to help me in my studies in getting my degree. And that was the closing for him. The minute I say that, he was like, okay, let's go and get it. Right? But honestly, 90% of the time, I wasn't looking for research. I was just surfing. Back then, it was Netscape. Now, how is this linked to convincing others? It is about understanding what matters to the other person, and to the words frame it in a way that matters to them. So in my dad, it was about making sure I complete my education properly. So therefore, positioning, getting the internet in order to do research so that I graduate worked for him. So that's what convincing people, that's a skill that you want to be looking at. Sounds simple, but it does take time to apply it. The key to convincing others is understanding what makes them tick. Right? Does it make sense? Right. Communication, and this is definitely a large part. Now, the thing about Malaysian communication is there's this thing called power distance. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it before. You can Google online for this particular model. Positive cultural dimension, and it will tell you in the Malaysian context, power distance is extremely high. Now, what does that mean? It means for most of you, because somebody is senior, you will not talk to them, you will not disagree with them, you will just take whatever they say, because why? They are higher rank. That's one. The other thing about communication in the Malaysian context, it is what we call high context, which means communication is gained through relationship. Which means when you go to workplace and you see somebody very senior, you want to be building relationship with people in the workplace. In Malaysia, the Western approach of I'm here to work, it's not as effective in Malaysia, because over here we value relationship. So in order for communication to improve, you must build relationship. You must remember what's going on. You will hear a lot of people saying things you should know. You will hear people saying, you know what I mean, right? Now, that is the language, that is the communication in the Asian context. You know what I mean, right? Now, basically what it says is, because we know each other, you should know what I mean. Now, that is a very dangerous form of communication, but it's a common form of communication in Malaysia. So if you are working in Malaysia, you want to be able to decipher, and to decipher, you need to understand the person. That's one. Secondly, you want to be daring enough to use the question and say, hey, sorry, actually, do you mean this? So you want to be asking rather than saying, okay, right? If you do that, then you might land in trouble. So this is one of the biggest challenges, communication. The other thing about communication goes back to sounding stupid or not agreeing with other people. We tend to keep quiet. So miscommunication is broad. The other, yes, you also want to recognize the same word has different meaning for different people. The same word has different meaning for different people. So part of miscommunication part of reducing miscommunication is always to explain further. Now, this is the things I always get in my industry. Somebody will say, yeah, Isaac, we do virtual training. And the word virtual training, you would assume the way you would understand the word virtual training is very different from how I will look at it. And therefore, to be able to ask questions, for example, all right, when you say virtual learning, can you explain a bit more why it goes? So one of the skill to reduce miscommunication is to do what we call drill down the question. And in order to do that, you need to be able to explain the person why you ask additional question. Let me give you an example.